Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I'm joined by Rachel Levine. She is an herbalist, a human design guide, yoga therapist, and the founder of her lifestyle brand, Intuitively Wild. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm so happy you're here.
I am so happy to be here.
So, with your skill set and your abilities, being an herbalist, being a human design guide, yoga, a yoga therapist, and the founder of this lifestyle brand. Like, where did your path start with this to where you are today? It's like that's a broad range of a skill set, an amazing skill set. But how does one become an herbalist and a human design guide and also a yoga therapist? So tell me all about it.
Yeah, it's definitely been a long and winding path. I would say for me, it all started with yoga. Yoga was my first love, I always say. And I fell in love with it at a pretty young age. And it was my whole life for a very long time. And I
Yeah.
went to school for yoga therapy and just like really immersed myself in that world.
Wow.
And then I started to become aware that I wanted to bring other modalities into my life.
Yeah.
And that's how I found herbalism. I just became, honestly, all of these modalities found me,
Mhm.
really. I just found myself becoming immersed in them and obsessed and just wanting to learn more and more. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I guess I'm gonna get trained in this. And although they might seem not connected and very different, they're very
Mhm.
different. Me, they're all just tools that I use to help
Yeah.
people connect with themselves. So when I'm working with people, I'm not just working with people as a human design guide or as a yoga
Right.
therapist. Those are the tools I use to help people find that connection within themselves and really tap into who they are and what their path is for in this life.
Yeah. So one of the things that you do is you like, let me ask you this. Why is connecting to nature, yourself, and others, why is that the best way to the tool to live in alignment and to thrive? Because I'm somebody who I live in the country sort of, but I find myself, it's hard to feel reconnected back to nature. Like, and I do feel out of alignment when that does happen. So why is that so important for us as individuals?
Well, nature, we are meant to live in tune with nature. That's how we were created, and that's
Yeah.
our natural rhythm is in alignment with nature. And then our current day society kind of brings us out of that. And so bringing ourselves into balance can be facilitated by connecting with
Yeah.
nature. And, you know, when you ask about in your first question, like my personal path
Yeah.
was a journey of disconnecting and then using these tools to reconnect. And
Right.
I really feel like the pillars of self connection, nature connection, and community connection, you need all three to really live a truly well and full life.
Yeah. So you personally experience struggles with mental health and maybe a toxic lifestyle. Like, how did you overcome or maybe coming to terms with, having a positive mental health mindset? Because I do feel like mental health ebbs and flows, and we all maybe cycle into struggles with mental health. Like, how did you find yourself like hitting that wall of being like, I need to do something else with my life?
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting because when I was at my most mentally unwell, you could look at me and think I was thriving. I
Wow.
and everyone, that was the feedback I was getting. People always praised me for my discipline and my diet and my exercise regime and how structured I was.
Yeah.
And that just fed into it for me more and more. And I
Sure.
think on the surface, very few people knew I was struggling,
Wow.
but I was very unwell. And
Yeah.
my rock bottom happened in that place where externally I looked very healthy. And so I
Right.
think looks can be deceiving, which is really,
Yes.
I think, very important for everyone to remember. And I hit that wall and I knew things had to change when I was just waking up over and over, not knowing how I was going to get through the day
Right. Right.
and not wanting to live like that anymore. I was very anxious. I had an eating disorder and I didn't even have the full awareness
Mhm.
of at the time. I just knew that I couldn't keep going how I was.
Right, right. I find that interesting how you kind of talked about, looks can be deceiving. And I do feel like we have such a fixation on how we should look, how we should present, how we should be. And it's interesting that some people only knew about your true struggles. And do you find that now with your clients that maybe, that they're also maybe experiencing the same kind of, it sounds like a little bit of perfectionism and how you want to outwardly present. Do you find that with your clients, and how do you work with that kind of, I have this presentation of how I want to be, but yet it's not working for me anymore?
Absolutely. So many of my clients deal with perfectionism and people pleasing and trying to stick to the status quo or expectations. And a lot of the work I do is about aligning people with their true
Mm.
values
Oh, I
and
love that.
helping them live in alignment with that.
Yeah.
And understanding what is getting in the way of us doing that. Because it's not just about knowing what our values are,
Right, right.
also about being able to actually embody them and knowing
Hmm.
what might stop us from doing that. And so it's a multi-layered process.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to intentionality. It's not necessarily what we're doing,
Hmm.
it's why and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And understanding that piece is really important.
I find that interesting how you brought up like what are your true values? Do you find that, and this is I guess the reason why I want to like kind of shift to this is that I'm like I wonder if my true values aren't really maybe like at the core, maybe I think they are, but maybe they're not. Have you ever found that maybe with yourself or maybe with some of your clients that you're like that's not your true values? Like have you ever experienced that?
Oh my God, all the time, all the time. I think that we can think our value is something, but that's just based on conditioning or what we've
Mm,
been told it should be, and or what we see other people doing or what our
yeah.
parents have told us to it should be, or we think that our value is something, but then when we dig a little deeper, that's not actually what it is. So, for
Wow.
example, say you think that luxury travel is a value of yours, but
Mm,
really you don't care if it's luxurious. You just want the freedom to be able to travel whenever you want. And so for you, it's more freedom.
right.
And so it's again getting to the root of it all.
Right,
And
right.
that's why knowing yourself is so important.
Right. I really like how you just put that too, because I'm somebody who wants to travel. I don't care how I travel, but I love the idea of freedom. And I like that you kind of like you unveiled that layer of, well, you might want to stay at a five-star hotel, but really is it because you just want freedom?
Mhm.
That's really interesting.
Exactly, exactly, because having the freedom to spend our money how we want, that's an important value. And
Yeah.
I think words are so powerful.
Right.
The wording we use, especially when we're kind of creating these pillars for our values, can impact how we frame ourselves in our mind and then how we then go off and create our life.
Oh, I love that so much. So, being an herbalist, I love the fact that you help people work with the seasons. So, like herbs, flowers, and plants to support you through each cycle. We're going into winter right now as we're doing this recording. What would be some recommendations that you would have for your clients right now?
Well, I am just launching two new products for the winter season.
Tell us
So
all
if you
about it.
Yeah. You can go to my online apothecary to check those out. I'm really excited about those. And one is a fire cider and one is a tea.
Oh my
So
goodness, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have been desperately wanting to find somebody that sells fire cider, and I am not even kidding you. I am so excited, but please tell me more.
I am obsessed with this fire cider. I love fire cider. For those who don't know, it's an elixir. It's made with apple cider vinegar and cinnamon, and there's many different recipes.
Yeah.
Um, I have really honed in on one that I love that I think is really powerful and potent and also tastes really good. And it has honey and rosemary and onion and garlic. It's My fire cider is my number one recommendation when it comes to the seasonal shifts
Wow.
into because it strengthens our immune system,
Yeah.
it cleans us, it strengthens our nervous system. It's so nourishing and it has so many benefits.
Yeah.
You can cook with it, you can add it to your teas, to even just warm water,
Right.
soup, stews, all the things. So I'm really passionate about this fire cider
I'm
and
so
it's
excited. I really am.
amazing. And then I have a tea also for the winter season called Soft Strength. And
Ooh.
for me, this tea, actually, I might be getting the, now I'm nervous, I'm getting the names confused, but
We're
the,
just very excited about your products. It's
yeah,
okay. We'll make sure to link your apothecary to this episode. I think that's so cool. Well, did you said soft strength is the name of the tea?
I'm pretty sure because the tea
Okay.
is all about grounding into
Yeah.
the softness that this winter season can bring
Yes.
and nourishing ourselves through that. I think so many of us can get really caught up in the
Mm.
holiday season and in the busyness and the go, 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 the activity, but
Yeah.
winter is a time to slow down and a time
Yes.
to soften into ourselves and reflect. And this tea is hopefully a ritual you can add to your day
Yeah.
to create that space for yourself.
I have to say, I love that name, soft strength, going into like the winter when we should be reflective and we should be turning inward and we should be gentle with oneself. Like it sounds like a very powerful but yet soothing tea. Like I just think that's so cool. Now, let me ask you this for where we are, we're in New York and a lot of it's very dark here, all the time. What will be soon? We get very sad and depressed in the winter months. Is there anything like that you would recommend with your skill set or maybe being an herbalist that you would recommend for the listeners to maybe help ease the feeling of our seasonal affective disorder that we all have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that staying connected to nature during this
Mm,
time can really shift things because growing up, I hated winter. I was very impacted by it. I
yeah.
avoided it at all. As soon as I could, I moved to Hawaii and was just like avoided summer. And now I'm back living in New York.
Wow.
And this is one reason I'm so passionate about seasonal living because it really
Yeah.
has supported my mental health and my connection
Right.
to the ever evolving seasons. And now I
Yeah.
love the seasons. And one way I embrace that is by leaning into the shift in weather. So making sure to still go outside, making
Yeah.
sure to, you know, take in anything I can. Like when it's getting darker,
Mm.
use that to light my candles and step outside and look at the stars.
Oh, I
So
like that.
and just walking around in nature, observing the trees, the leaves falling off the trees, like really being present with how
Right.
the seasons are shifting around us and noticing what is happening in nature because it's also
Right.
happening within ourselves, you
Right.
know, going into hibernation and so are we. And that's a part of the process and embracing that and finding the magic in that. So my biggest suggestion is to keep going outside, especially first thing in the morning and in the evening as you're kind of transitioning to resting after your busy day, having those moments in nature to pause and
Mm.
connect to that stillness and that softness and just look around you and be present can help you stay see the positives and the magic in
Yeah.
this in the darker times.
I love those. I love that I love those suggestions. I really do. I'm somebody who I'm not the biggest fan of winter, so it's like because I'm like, oh, but I'm gonna implement these ideas, and I'm gonna be a lover of all seasons. I'm gonna, I am. I think that's amazing. I like the idea of lighting the candles, like in
Mhm.
the evening. I like that. That sounds like again like softening and making things when you get out of your hustle and bustle, which I think a lot of us get stuck in that, mode, and then maybe going home and doing like a rest and relax. I really like that idea. It's really good practical advice. So you have this amazing brand, Intuitively Wild. Can you tell us about this and like how can we learn more and tell us more about it?
Yeah, so Intuitively Wild is a lifestyle brand that helps you reconnect to yourself, nature, and others. And really, the intention is connection. All
Yeah.
our products and services are rooted into that. And we have many different offerings, from free offerings such as a podcast, YouTube,
Yeah.
Substack. And also, I have a mentorship, I have the online apothecary, and very soon I'll have in-person events and
Ooh,
many different things in person as well if you're in upstate New York. Um, but
I am.
oh, that's
I
exciting.
guess it depends on what our definition of upstate New York is.
That is very true. Um, but yeah, for me, I really did live so much of my life. I mean, up until a certain age, very
Mm,
disconnected. And the way that I found myself, the way that I found my
yeah.
path, this vitality is through connection.
Mm,
And my whole purpose in life, what I live for now is to help others find that sense of connection. And so that's all I hope that all my offerings bring through Intuitively Wild.
I love that so much. Tell us a little bit more about your podcast.
Yeah, so my podcast, so twice a month we
Mm,
have solo conversations, which what the first episode of the month is an reflection of the month that passed and intention setting episode for the month to come. And the other solo is a ritual for the month. And that's really dependent on what's happening that month. It might be for the solstice or the
mm,
full moon or the equinox that it depends. And then
yeah.
the other two podcasts are conversations with guests like
Mm,
yourself, and we go deep. My intention with that is to have people on to share conversations that previously maybe were harder to talk about
yeah.
and get vulnerable. I think it's really important to shed light on conversations that we're told to feel shame around or not talk about, because that eradicates the shame and shows us that we're all moving through life together
Yeah.
and bring us deeper into connections. So that's my podcast. It's also everything's under the name Intuitively Wild. And starting that podcast was a huge transition for me into using my voice and showing
Yeah.
up even more authentically. So I love the podcast so much.
I love that so much. And I love the fact that you're giving practical tools, in the solo episodes. You've brought up a couple times like intentions, intentional living. That seems like a very strong point in your life. Could you tell us a little bit more why that's important to you?
Yeah, reflections, intentions, and rituals are key pillars in my life. And that's for a lot of reasons. I think that they're actionable and tangible tools that can bring that spiritual realm down
Mm,
into embodiment and really feel approachable for all of us.
yeah.
And I think that only through reflecting can we understand who we are and understand who we want to be moving forward. And then setting those intentions allows us to actually create the steps to do so, to actually embody that, to actually
Yeah.
bring that with us into our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And the rituals are the practice of that. It's the reminder and the constant reconnection to who we are and who
Yeah.
we want to be, and bringing that into our life, because it's not just about having those mindfulness practices or having those wellness practices
Yeah.
as one-offs. It's actually embodying that daily and letting that soak into who we are.
Right. So one of the things that I feel is important, and I would imagine this is something that's very important to you, is spiritual hygiene. So,
Mm.
like, do you have any maybe daily rituals or any daily practices that you do to make sure that you feel connected, true to yourself, authentic, that you would feel comfortable sharing with the audience?
Yeah, of course. I think that this is so personal and everyone is so different.
Yes, so
I,
true.
yeah, and that's a big thing for me as well. And that's one reason why I love working one-on-one with people, is figuring out the rituals that work for you.
Right.
But if you're asking for me personally, I'm a morning person through and through. And
Same.
I am devoted to my morning practice, my morning ritual. It's everything to me. So I wake up and I get on my meditation cushion. I sit with my dog in my lap and I meditate, I breathe, I journal, and I light all my candles. And then I move into some yoga. And that is a key foundation of my life.
Yeah.
That is how I stay connected to myself every day.
I love that. And I really I love the fact that if anyone's not listening or watching the video, as she's saying that, you could tell she just lights up with joy. Like it must bring you so much like peace within, like for struggling. But go ahead.
It really does. And I am a structure person. I do like schedules and
Yeah,
routines, and that's not always possible. And
so
so when
true.
not in my routine, my anxiety can heighten. But
Yeah,
this ritual I can bring with me everywhere. And no matter what, I can wake up. I mean, I naturally wake up earlier than everyone, but even so, even 5 minutes by
yeah,
myself in the morning, I can just sit with myself and know that that's going to bring me the peace I need throughout the rest of my day, even when my anxiety is heightened.
yeah.
And that's really that practice has saved me so many times.
I love that so much. So one of the things that I respect yoga so much, but as somebody who is not very flexible, do you have any like I mean, I'm sure that that's okay, but I mean, do you have any like do you meet resistance with people that are like, oh, I can't do yoga? Like, how do you help overcome that and help people realize that it's a possibility for you? You just have to change your mindset.
Absolutely. I get with this all the time, and not flexible is a common sentiment, and that does not matter at all. Yoga is not for people who are flexible, it's for everybody.
Oh, I love
It
that.
that it because it's like saying I can't walk fast, so I shouldn't walk.
Oh, I love that. That's a good analogy. I like that.
Because first of all, yoga has so many different pillars, and the
Right.
physical asana is only one of them. So you can just practice meditation or breath work. There's
Right.
so many different aspects to that. And second of all, if we are talking specifically about like the physical
Mhm.
postures, they're not meant for you to shape shift into a certain form. They're
Mm.
meant to serve your body. So it
Right.
doesn't matter if you can touch your toes. It just matters that you're getting the benefits from the stretch to serve your body.
Right.
And so you just have to find the postures that your body needs in this
Right.
moment. And that might take some digging, or it might take finding the right teacher, working one-on-one with someone.
Yeah.
But yoga is here to serve everyone. It's here to
Yeah.
fit you.
Do you find that when people are, with doing your yoga practices and with your yoga therapy, that they're releasing, because I do feel like it goes in line with somatics, that they're releasing like energy that's stuck to them. And that's one of the reasons why yoga is so important.
Yes, absolutely. We store so many emotions in our body,
Yes.
pain, trauma, energy. It's all held in our body. And it's like I don't know if you've heard of the book, The Body Keeps the
Yes.
Score.
The
I
emotion code, the body keeps a score, like all of those amazing books. It's so true.
it's so true. And when I first started practicing yoga, I would do hip openers and just start bawling. And this is when I was like 15. I had no
Oh my
awareness or
goodness.
yet around any of it. I'm like, why am I crying? But I know that I need to be crying.
Right.
And that is an experience that so many people have that I work with. And I think we can't disconnect from our bodies.
Mm.
We can't just push our bodies to the brink either. We have to be really working with them and connecting to them. And yoga is a physical practice that helps us do that.
Yeah, I love that. And being an intuitive mentor, like what do you tap in for your clients? Because it's you said that it's individualized and it sounds very personal. Do you have like maybe some common themes that you're finding with some of your clients, or are you just intuitively guided to where you need to go with that person?
Definitely both. Um, there's uniqueness in everything. I would say some common themes are kind of like what we talked about before, the
Yeah.
people pleasing, the perfectionism, the overwhelm, and the disconnection. A lot of people who are feeling like they're just living on autopilot mode and
Right.
they don't know what their purpose is, or they feel like they're just going along with what everyone else is doing, but they don't want to be. They want to know who they are and what
Yeah.
their life is. So those are some common themes. But underneath that, there's always personal layers around why that's showing up for that person and what their
Yeah.
block is to move through that.
I love that. Can you tell us a little bit more about your mentorship?
Yeah, so a lot of what we talked about is woven into it.
Nice.
And like I said, the human design, the yoga therapy, the herbalism, those are all tools that I use to then
Mhm.
help people connect with themselves. And specifically, when we're talking about intuition, connect with this inner guidance, this inner wisdom within them.
Mhm.
And it shows up differently for everyone. And we kind of get to the root of how it's showing up for you. And similarly with the values, there's different
Yeah.
layers to that. It's understanding how your intuition speaks to you and then strengthening that muscle so that you can connect to it more easily. And then knowing why you might have resistance to listening to it and then actually trusting your intuition and following it and using that to guide your life. And so those are kind of the different steps we move through.
Oh, that's so perfect. That's so perfect. And if anyone is interested in learning more about you, I know you have the Pocket Theory, you have the podcast, she has a website. Where's the best place for them to go to?
I would say it's all on the website. So maybe the website, yeah. But also you can come find me on Instagram and DM me and we can chat there and you can ask me any questions you have and I can guide you.
I love it. And for our final question, I guess let me see if I can figure out a good question for your final question. If somebody is maybe, maybe they're stuck in this perfectionist model and they're feeling like they're going, but they know that it's not working for them anymore. And maybe they've hit that wall and they're struggling with them. What is one piece of advice that you can give to them to maybe have them pause on this journey and realize that they're not alone?
Yeah. What's coming up for me is don't be afraid to do things differently. And, you know, change is really scary for
Mhm.
all of us. And not only do we get so used to who we are, but other people around us do. And
Yeah.
when we start to make changes or connect more to our authenticity, other people might respond negatively to that or have reactions or responses to that. And we have to really have the confidence within ourselves to stay true to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I would say prioritize your sense of connection above all else and be willing to show up differently, be willing to be the different person.
I love that. I love that answer. And I love the being okay with being connected with your true self and being okay with that. And I think we do struggle as a society to be okay with who I am as a person. And I would imagine that your mentorship and everything that you offered people really helped them to reconnect to their true authentic beings.
Yes, authenticity is one of the biggest things I work with people on. And, it makes me really frustrated because it should be easy for us to show up authentically in the world, but it's actually one of the scariest things. It's actually one of the most challenging things.
It is so true. And I'm going to pivot to another thing because it's so true. Like, even today, I was meeting with two people and we were talking about how we didn't feel comfortable to eat in front of certain people. And I know that's such a simple thing, eating, like eating and, being exposed. But it's so fascinating because and I was even like to myself, I'm like, I cannot believe that the three of us share this concern. And it's like, wow, that's not being tapped to my intuitive, authentic self, you know?
And yeah, no, and I think that's so important to share because that's also another testament to talking about the things that we feel shame about. Because now
Yes.
you see that all three of you are having this similar situation,
Right.
experiencing like, oh, maybe it is okay. Maybe I can show up this way. Maybe it isn't so serious, or I don't have to feel ashamed of it or hide it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I am not going to feel shamed. I'm not. And I feel like as a woman, and I feel like you probably have experienced this too. Like we are conditioned to feel shame. And it's like unwrapping that is I love the fact that everything that you're doing is helping people to unwrap that and peel that layer off to really truly be their authentic, beautiful selves.
Yes, the reason you often I've noticed that what makes us, what makes us our most authentic beings, what makes us most special and
Mm.
unique is what makes us different and is what we have the most shame around. And
Oh,
so we have to work through the shame and let ourselves be different to be our most authentic selves and be willing to shine bright and
wow.
be willing to stand out. And that is terrifying for a lot of us.
That is terrifying. And I will say, with that answer, I now have chills. And I want to thank you, Rachel, so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. It has truly been amazing to connect with you today.
Yes, thank you so much. This was so much fun. I love your energy and I'm really grateful to be here.
I'm really grateful you're here too.